Safety items I need to get out of the way real quick, and then I'll introduce our guest speaker. One, for those of you who are new or do not know, our meeting location for fire drills is out here in front of the building. I know this is a super old picture because the expansion's not here, so it's kind of hard to see. I understand we had a few people who seem to be getting lost on their way to the meeting location. The other item, in light of the hurricane we just had, I just want to remind everyone, and for those of you who don't know, which I was one of them, emergency contact should you be notified not to come to work, or if you're off-site and for some reason we have to shut down the barn, or if the barn is burned down, blow up, whatever. Contact would come, HR and executive committee would notify managers, and then from there the managers will notify everyone else. And the third thing, we had an almost incident in the parking lot. For those eager beavers who want to get to work super fast, please be conscious of other people who might have gotten to work earlier than you and are leaving the parking lot. Just watch for traffic so you don't almost hit a vehicle. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chuck Swandarski. He's our Cincinnati insurance representative, and he'll be presenting.
Thank you.
And I'll add that over.
Yes, good afternoon. Thanks for having me here today. It's no big deal. I came with Subway. Came with sandwiches, so if you buy one, you get a speaker for free, I guess, or something like that. But that's a nice spread over there. It really is nice. Two things I want to accomplish today. One is Brian and I got together, and he said about the topic, about talking a little bit about construction hazards, construction safety, things like that, and then interjecting some general safety stuff into the mix. But secondly, I want to have some fun today. So if I don't mean to offend anybody, and you know, some of the things we say in Pittsburgh are sort of not acceptable out here in this neck of the woods, so that's okay. What we're trying to do today is talk to you a little bit about the construction aspect of the safety aspect of construction. And it's kind of an easy sell today because so many companies now are safety conscious, even from the general contractors, the subcontractors. And it's kind of nice when the general contractor says, we don't like your experience mod factor, we don't like your frequency rate, so you guys just can't work for us anymore. So it's kind of a nice mix when you do these things. And you ask, why do we have the safety program? Well, I underlined a couple different things. One is you have a legal obligation under OSHA, under contractual language and things of that nature, which basically spells out what you have to do. Now, the OSHA rules and regulations, some people like try to go with the letter of the law on these things, usually from a compliance perspective. We try to go from the intent of the law to protect workers while they're on the jobs. Every job site in construction is constantly changing. I mean, you just can't apply all the rules the whole way along the line when the project changes. And then you throw the weather mix into the doggone thing, and you really don't know from day one to day two what you're going to be working with: snow, rain, mud, sleet, snow, hail, windstorms, or what have you. But you do have a legal obligation. The second thing most companies are recognizing right now is that the economic impact of safety. And you don't get a job anymore from some of the contractors because of your safety record. And also from an insurance perspective. I never realized in my other companies how much money you can actually save on your insurance premiums, because we were always, I hate to use the word self-insured, but we were always self-insured. We were big enough. So any dollar that we would save, we called ourselves a profit-enhancing group, because if we didn't have to pay anything in workers' comp or any kind of medical bills, that came right back into our profit picture on no matter what we did. But nowadays, it's an economic factor. Moral obligation, I think, just in the camaraderie of this group here, you sort of see that the moral obligation is to bring your employees into work, give them a good day's worth of work, pay them a good wage, and return them back to their families and loved ones the same way that they came to work. Now, Brian had questioned that before. It's really, Brian, if they come into work drunk, you don't have to feed them Jack Daniels at lunch and then send them back drunk, because it's just not something we want to do. I'm glad you got the joke. There was only one of the people. The rest of you keep eating. We'll just continue on with that. And the last thing is, I mean, what do you see? What do your competitors see? What do your subcontractors see when they see your logo? Do they see an image of destruction? Do they see an image of safety, of, you know, we have we're going to deliver lumber today on the site, or we're going to deliver the roofing on the site today, and then 2 ambulances accompany that and take 2 more employees out every day? Or do they see a very, very nice company? I know you're very, very proud of what you do. I was in some of your buildings just by dumb luck, and they are just beautiful, well designed, well built, and just now well maintained. So there's a lot of pride that goes into it. So you want to try to keep that image of a company that you've been fostering all these years as a good, sound company that really likes their employees and wants them to be safe, not only from an employee standpoint, but also from a subcontractor perspective. Brian talked to me a little bit about looking at hazards. So most people say, well, there's a hazard there, there's something on the floor, and there's a hazard there, that there's a wire hanging down. But the hazard definition has expanded so much. We now look at the hazards, not only a condition, but also a process on how you bring things in. Okay, that's the hazard of the process. Also, how much can we control the behavior of our employees? It's very, very difficult to do that. We demand certain things that they do. We say you have to do this, you have to do that, and then we have to babysit them and say if you don't do this, you get a day off without pay, 2 days without pay. And finally, some people just say you can't come back. We had an employee that we worked with lead, and the guy just would not adhere to our housekeeping standards, our hygiene standards, and it was one of the best workers we had, but unfortunately, every time he had a lead blood test, it was high. So we just had to say, hey, look, we're sorry. You know, we'll take care of you by letting you go. You know, you can find a job somewhere else. So that's kind of tough. These are all contributing factors. We say conditions, processes, and behaviors or activities, and if you don't address them or at least put them out of the formula, somebody could get hurt when you do that. I guess when you look at hazards, you got to look at what our friends at OSHA always look at on construction sites. This is the last year they had statistics, 2010, but they look at fall protection as the #1 cited rule that they promulgated. And you wonder why it is, okay? Well, because it's easy. You can come in, there's some more sandwiches, you can have a sandwich with you. Go ahead. She doesn't want to take the safety class, she just wants to have the sandwich, which is okay with us. But we'll bill your department. The fall protection standard, you wonder why a guy would want to work up on a roof or up high, on a scaffold, on a bucket truck or something, without fall protection. I mean, when you look down, it's like almost scary when you're working. There's a couple pictures that unfortunately I don't know where they are, but they were people that work on cell towers. Now, if you ever saw that Mike with Dirty Jobs, he was working on a cell tower. And I mean, you know, you felt bad for him being up there, but then all of a sudden you realize, who's taking the pictures? There's a guy with a camera on his back taking this guy's picture, and they're all come around a cell tower. So, you know, my friend of mine makes a lot of money building those things. Nobody else seems to want to do the doggone thing. But then you look at portable ladders. Now, how dumb is it not to put a ladder up correctly, or misuse of a ladder? And I'll show you some pictures that I garnered over the years and stole off the internet and everything that'll show you about the ladders. Then you go into working on roofs with unprotected edges, working on bridges with unprotected edges and things. So all these things are hazards that OSHA cited. Simple things like eye protection. It amazes me. I went to a facility after this where they do grinding and they do polishing, and the guy is constantly telling employees to put on their safety glasses. And what do you think the highest injury cause is? Stuffing your eyes. So if you add 2 and 2, you sort of say, well, if you put your safety glasses on, then the eyes should be pretty much safe on their own. So all these things have to do with the construction standards. And let's take a look at some of the common hazard areas, I guess. When you're out on the job, or even when you're in your office here, #1 is working on walking surfaces. People have to get from point A to point B. On a construction site, that changes every day. You have extension cords running, you have hydraulic lines, pneumatic lines running all over the place. You have paths of travel running all over the place. We were in a couple, one of your facilities, a couple other sites within the last 6 months. It's tough working out there. It really is tough working out there. Material movement. That's one of the things we take a look at when we do the jobs is everybody wants just-in-time delivery. Nobody wants stuff sitting on the site anymore. Everybody wants that we're putting it together. My experience with a company, we used to build stores. And it was like, the guy would look at you, and he was an old-time construction guy, and they'd say, okay, now what in a contract, what's the contract? And he says, I pick up the phone and I call you up. Next day I want the stuff on site. That's the contract. That was his whole contract. So it was like, Our subs now have everything stored somewhere, so they come. So when it comes, we put it up. We cut back in building a store from 64 weeks down to 32 weeks from the time we broke ground until the time you opened the doors and could buy stuff. That's how tight the schedule was on the thing. And I mean, weather did have a factor in it. But you also take a look at the electrical issues, tools and guarding, workflow arrangements, how we work things. A lot of times when we're on sites, job sites, factories or things, where they bring things in is way on the other side of the facility from where they actually need to use the stuff. So what that means is everybody is exposed to material handling, being moving back and forth, and things like that. We actually made a recommendation once in one of my companies. We closed the facility down. We outgrew it so much. And just to give you what the big eye opener was, the lift truck would bring the materials in, raise it up about 12 feet in the air, and travel in an aisleway with the stuff raised up. That's how tight the building was. And it was like, who was the safety director in that company? I was. So when you make a recommendation, we close the site and we rebuild, and then all of a sudden they said, well, wow, we didn't add anything. We just added 2 lines. The stuff came in here. We built it, and it went out over there. It was pretty simple. Okay? Talk a little bit about fire prevention, because there's no sense in you guys building a building when the thing catches fire and burns down before you turn the keys over. So that's critical on construction sites. You've got a lot of hot work permits going in, you got combustibles. I'll show you some slides there that are just going to say, whoa, I can't believe it. It's actually one of your sites. You have a relationship with motorized vehicles. All the time the big boys are coming in, and sometimes when you sit up in the cab of one of those big earth movers, you can't see for about 20 feet around you sometimes. You just go straight, and that's about where you go. The last is what kind of programs we have from a safety standpoint. Lockout, tag out, personal protective equipment, hazmat. Anybody recognize the stadium? Beaver Stadium, Upstate College. I happened to be up there, and they found that the garbage guy was they were doing some construction on it. He was dumping off a dumpster, and he forgot to lower the bed down when he unhooked the dumpster. So as he was pulling away, he just took this whole thing down, the whole front of the thing. Now, what they found out was when they built this little retaining wall to hide the dumpsters, they attached onto the corner of the bleachers. Now, you guys in engineering, you know what the corner is. That's probably like your strongest point and everything like that. So actually, I had some fun with this. I told them that they were actually going to tear the stadium down rather than just take the statue down. They were going to tear the whole thing down and start from scratch. We had a lot of the alumni riled up for about a week until they figured out I was, again, lying to them. But this was kind of crazy. And then when you look at it, they had to take it piece by piece. They were actually holding up the walls and the rebars with the backhoe while this guy was up there cutting with a torch. And then the last but not least, all the king's horses and all the king's men then try to figure out what they were going to do. So it was like, why don't you do this meeting first before the wall starts coming down and the guy gets knocked around in the bucket truck and try to figure this thing out. That's where we need the engineers to come in, and you need to do things because a lot of times experience is very, very practical when you do these things. How do you abate the hazards? Well, one of the things is to recognize it. We can all be hazard recognizers and really say, oh, we saw this, but what do you do about it? You guys in engineering, whether you realize it or not, do a lot of engineering out the hazards from the get-go. You have rules, regulations, floor loads, balcony heights, and things like this. That's all done prior to. We do the same thing if we find a hazard, we recognize something that's not right. How do we engineer that thing out? How do we make it, because retrofitting is kind of tough. And then you got to make it so simple for us. We were trying to calculate roof loads on our roof. Flat roofs were bowing in, and we lost one. And we were trying to calculate. So the engineer came up, he said, get a stovepipe, put it down. If it's 12 inches of wet snow, you need to get the snow off the roof. So it was like pretty simple. We can do that stuff. Training programs help. Your personal protective equipment is good, but it's the worst kind because it doesn't remove the hazard. Everybody's wearing safety glasses. It sort of means there's stuff flying around. We can't engineer it out. We can't administer it out. So we got to protect you with hard hats, boots, and things of that nature. Anybody ever see a, I don't know, I used to call it a redneck smoke detector. But then somebody said, they have those in Perry County. So I don't know what you call it. I told you, I'll probably offend most of you in here when I come in here. But I thought that was kind of a cute little thing. No offense. First name is Loretta, okay. Did you get the onions thing straightened out?
I did.
All right, good. All right. Here's categories of workplace hazards for you. That's categories of them. Physical, ergonomic, chemical, biological, and psychological. Now they're having a lot of stuff. Anybody can recognize that this is a hazard. Why do you suppose it is? It's actually one of the meeting areas of on a construction site. Why do you suppose it's such a hazard?
You got nails sticking up off that one.
You got everything in the containers. Now I don't know about you guys, but I'm from Pittsburgh, and Polish trash compactors, not Polish, we can fit 3 times that amount just by standing on a doggone thing and just keep pushing it down, pushing it down, pushing it down. But as Brian said, if there's glass, if there's scraps, if there's nails in that thing, somebody's going to take a chance at it. Somebody's going to try to do that thing. Okay, how about this? Is that a physical hazard? People work in close proximity to, yes, you do recognize that, job site. Working in close proximity. The interesting thing about this slide here was these 2 guys were cutting material to put on the side. The guy that was cutting it was 100% protected. Safety glasses, goggles, hard hat. The guy that was holding stuff didn't have his glasses on and didn't have gloves on. So it's like somebody did some great operator training, but nobody did the good helper training. Okay, but the good news was, I liked the rapport that the gentleman that just left had with his people, because all he had to do was this, and the guy knew exactly what he was talking about. He knew exactly what he was talking about. All right, ergonomic hazards basically say we have to try to design jobs as much as we can towards the different workforces. If you take a look at this, here's a handle on a cart that's designed for all different types, heights, and calibers of people. If this guy moves lumber 1 time on a job site, he's okay. If that's all he does, he's going to have shoulder pain, he's going to have elbow pain and things like this. This guy up on the top, which one's the laser on this thing?
Middle button.
You sure?
Yeah.
I'm not going to change something. Okay, don't have kids for about 2 days because I just shot you with a laser. Okay, this guy here, if he does this for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, his knees are going to start hurting, elbows are going to start hurting, and everything else. So these are ergonomic hazards, trying to design their jobs from the get-go to be a little bit easier with people. And if you take a look, remember the slide we showed you, they had a real nice work table, they had a real nice workout. Ergonomically, they were correct when they moved these things around. We also have on construction sites chemical hazards. Now, the good thing about just-in-time delivery on chemicals and paints and solvents and things is you don't have a big accumulation of it, so that somebody can decide to stick it with a fork truck, cause some kind of problems. So that somebody can't leave all kind of stuff laying around by dumpsters, because actually we're responsible for that stuff with groundwater contamination and things like this. Or you don't see all these big bags and big chemicals laying around anymore when they do these things. Now, are you exposed to biological hazards? You may ask yourself, other than onions. Okay, standing water is a biological hazard with the mosquitoes, with the vermin and the varmints and all that stuff that lives in and around construction sites. Okay, also old tires or anything that collects water can be a site for a biological hazard. Bugs, grasshoppers, rodents and things like that. Any kind of food. This is not that food there, by the way. But on construction sites, if you don't provide a place to keep your stuff cold, that old salmonella can start breeding up in really a long time. And I'll just put that one up here just to make sure on Thanksgiving that you put the turkey away and let it cool down a little bit before you bring it out for seconds. In our house, it doesn't even get a chance to get cool, because as soon as the dishes are done, then we're ready for seconds on Thanksgiving dinner. But those are all biological hazards. The other thing is, if you work with human beings, that's where you get the biological interaction with the different bloodborne diseases, with the different airborne diseases, sneezing and stuff like that. So that is definitely a concern when you talk about reusing face masks, doubling up on face masks, disposable face masks that you lay open on construction sites and things like that. Now, how about psychological hazards? Is that a big thing on construction sites? What do you think?
Everywhere.
It's psychological everywhere. You know, in this day and age, and it always amazes me when you get all these statistics, and I don't believe statistics at all because I participate in a lot of the polls. And, you know, I always say I'm very, very happy that you always ask the Polish people what you think about the presidential election. I mean, don't you pick on the Irish? Or, you know, we're taking a poll. Great, okay. This is a poll. I'm a poll from Pittsburgh. Worries, things on your mind, not concentrating on your jobs, alcohol, drugs, and last but not least, what affects you psychologically on your way to work? What happened to you on your way to work? I mean, I have a 14-year-old daughter, and she's hot, she's cold, she's irritated, she's on her cell phone, and it's like, I'm just happy when she's happy. Our whole family is happy when she's happy. Okay? No. All right, what about strains and strains on construction sites? What should you be looking for? You're looking for people that do a lot of the same jobs. You look at people that are always bent over doing work like that. On construction sites, they may be cement finishers, they may be carpet installers. They may actually be something with sprains and strains. A lot of back injuries are caused by slip and falls, which impacts your back. Okay, so just don't think it's all lifting. Because actually it's not all lifting. Sometimes it's like you lift things and you say, well, how can I prevent you from getting hurt when you're lifting things? We bought people gloves, non-skid gloves, because they were always losing their grip and then jumping after it. And we said, well, if you don't lose your grip, that's the causal factor, then you don't have to jump after it. Okay? We used to provide our people with back supports, and sort of the statistics now are saying they're not all that they're cracked up to be. So save your money, go into a good training program, and try to redesign the jobs so you don't have people doing things like this. How am I doing time-wise? Doing pretty good. How much fun? You want to get out of here? You already got fed, right? Huh? Got a half an hour. All right, good. So these are sprains and strains when you do these things. On construction sites, you watch for people doing things that they're putting a lot of pressure on work and things. For example, this gentleman, what would you suggest to him to move the carpeting a little bit easier? Or the bag goods or the piping, whatever he's moving. Okay, we did provide him with a cart, but he's twisting, he's from the side, he's twisting, he's only using one set of muscles, and they're actually twisting muscles which are weaker than your back or stomach muscles. Okay? Some people would say, well, why don't you just put your hands on the thing and push it? Or get your hands on the thing and push the cart. That's good. That eliminates. But on construction sites, you're not always blessed to have concrete, level floors. Sometimes you're going through mud, sometimes you're going through dirt, sometimes you're going through gravel. This is standing water again. That's not bad when it's standing water, but now it's going to start being standing ice. So we have a bigger concern when we do things like that. All right. What about strains from lifting? When you go on a job site, again, looking at what people do, the thing that we have to try to do is how can we address that? I don't care if you're an engineer, if you're a job site supervisor, or if you're a worker, or you're just on the safety committee. How can we address sprains and strains? Well, a lot of times it's just failure to plan. Failure to plan things. It's like somebody's taking a lift truck, they're moving materials, and all of a sudden they go from a concrete floor to a wood floor with a lift truck. Okay? And you say, well, when does somebody do that? Well, how about going into a trailer truck? How about unloading a trailer or something like that? They go into a wooden floor truck. Is the floor supporting? Can the floor support all that stuff? You know, we used to do a lot of roof work, and we'd test the roof the good Pittsburgh way by walking on it. And if it was a little springy, then we'd say, well, we better put some boards on here. And if it wasn't, but nobody realized what they call maximum workload on some of those things is me. Now I'm carrying 2 bundles of shingles, which sort of increases my weight distribution per square foot. You engineers try to follow me on this, I'm sure. All right, try to increase it. And I actually fell through a roof once by stepping on the same thing that I went over, but I had 2 bundles of shingles on me, and boom, I went through the roof. So if you don't anticipate your plan, just-in-time delivery to job sites, it's just like anything else. Guys at the job sites are always changing. One of the questions you should ask them when you go to visit a job site is, where does the ambulance pick up, how does the ambulance know where to pick up the injured employees if they should come here? Go to the garage door. Okay, we have 50 garage doors on some of your sites. Go to the main entrance. Do the ambulance guys know where the main entrance is on new construction sites? So that's sort of the best plan I ever saw on a construction site was they had to mobilize a team, their emergency response team. And we had what? And there was a guy who would stand out front in a vest and tell the ambulance or the fire department where to go. And there would somebody meet them around the corner. It was part of the emergency response plan, which I thought was a little bit good, especially on a construction site when you're building a 1 million square foot building. Kind of nice. Back injury prevention and strains and sprains starts with footwear. It really, really does. If your feet are at an angle, that means your knees are at an angle, your hips are at an angle, and it affects your back process. Now the tough thing is, I don't know about you, but we always spend the least amount of money on, say, good work shoes. And I don't know why. You know, we'll buy good Sunday go to meeting shoes, and we'll buy good fishing boots, and we'll buy good hunting boots. But the work boots, they say, oh, I can get them, you know, you can get work boots for $59, safety tours, you can get them for $200. Why do I want to spend all that money? They're still protect my thing. On a construction site, you have mud, you have oil affecting them. So some people don't want to spend it, but the worst thing you can do is to wear shoes that put you at a disadvantage from day one. On some of the sites we've been to, we have a very, very restricted path of travel. If you're carrying something, here's where you want to carry it. Right in here, this is your strongest way. But if the path is restricted and you have to lift it up or push it underneath, you're putting yourself in a bad position when you do these things. Construction sites, everything comes in cardboard boxes, right? You don't have to worry about it. Nice little concise cardboard boxes. They're oddball shapes, oddball sizes, oddball weights. So that's one of the things. Failure to use the equipment. A lot of times we'll see people moving tanks or barrels, and they're rolling them on the sides when they have a tank mover right beside them. So when you're looking at these things, always take a look and say, why are these people carrying something? When you go on site, why are they carrying something? Maybe we need carts, maybe we need this. For whatever reason, the company was very, very progressive in safety. They had a lot of problems with their installers, and they decided to get electric lifts on their trucks. Well, I'll tell you what, it cost a lot of money, but their back injuries were just absolutely nothing because they recognized that's where they were having most of their problems, loading and unloading material. All right, now how do you lift correctly? If I would tell you how to lift, ask you how to lift correctly, could you tell me that?
Yes.
Everybody knows, but why don't we do it? You ever watch a baby lift stuff? Babies can get down and they do things, they're just picture perfect. And then all of a sudden we train them differently or something like that. We bend over and we tell them this, we tell them that. And my grandma, I can still remember, she was from the Ukraine. We used to hand till a 3/4 of an acre garden. I mean, when we'd get done, you'd just wipe your brow off and then you'd look back and the weeds were growing up at the North 40. And she had no concept of us getting on our knees and picking weeds and picking rocks. She said, no, you bend over and pick it up because people will think you're lazy. So I blame the whole Ukraine for me and my back problem. We're going to go over there one day and tell them how much they messed us up. But when you teach people how to live correctly, you teach people how to work correctly, you reduce the potential for back injuries. You really do. When you look at it, when you start a lawnmower, you pull from this side. Okay, my ritual was to go to church, so you kneel down, you stand up, you get in all kind of awkward positions in church, and then you come home, you grab a good bite to eat, and then all of a sudden you pull, not even stretching or anything like that. There was a couple trucking companies now that are starting to do exercises prior to them unloading trucks. Some trucking companies now have their truck drivers load the truck the night before while they're loose a little bit, rather than getting up out of bed and then going and trying to load their trucks in the morning. Just a concept, and it's a progressive concept because they're trying things. Is there a magic formula? Maybe yes, maybe no. I don't know that. I don't know the answers. Last two things are probably the most important. We had worked with ergonomists, and they say if you just flex your knees a little bit, you know yourself when you're standing up a long period of time, if you just flex your knees just a little bit, it takes a lot of stress and strain off your backs. Kind of easy. I do a lot of pier fishing when I get down to Florida, and when you stand at a pier all day, it's kind of tough. And all of a sudden, you just start, especially if you're not catching anything. And then if you just flex your knees just a little bit, boy, it takes a lot of the stress and strain right off of your back when you do that thing. And last but not least, everybody says don't twist, but seriously, it's no disrespect to Chubby Checker or anything about the twist that he got in 1963. Do you remember the dance in 1963? I didn't think so. But be that as it may, okay, some of us do remember that dance part. The thing with it, don't twist when you do it because you're using your weaker core muscles when you trip, when you do the twist. All right, quick question for you. What's your first name? Loretta. What's a nitrate?
Sorry, I was reading.
That's all right. That's all right. You got to be on. You got to do some of these things. All right. What about electrical issues on construction sites? What about electrical issues? What do you do? It's pretty easy to say everybody has to do this, everybody has to do that. We have ground faults, circuit interrupters. But then when you turn around, what happens? The job needs to get done. So people do all kind of crazy things with electricity on job sites. We have wires and cables, plugs, switches, open, overloaded circuits, not GFCI protected anything. We work in wet locations, okay? And last but not least, we have exposed connections on job sites. Now this is pretty well laid out, well thought out. It's a distribution center, but nonetheless, if you have electric fork trucks, which some of you do on job sites because of the type of jobs you do, you have charging stations. So somebody designed a charging station with a whole bunch of good electricity right next to the water fountain, so they can get water for the fork trucks. Okay, so 1 and 1 doesn't make 2. It makes for an accident. And as you can see, a lot of the water leaks all over the place and everything like this. The good news is they have a fire extinguisher right here. So when we're talking about fire extinguishers, we say, why do you have to go to the area that's probably going to catch fire to get the fire extinguisher? Okay, don't laugh. You guys engineered this building, and it took me 5 minutes to find a light switch in the men's room. Somebody put it on the opposite far wall, and I'm thinking, these guys, all these engineers here, electricians and everything, I can't find a dang light switch in the men's room. But things like that happen, and it seems like you nitpick people when Brian or the safety committee comes in and says, we need to move the fire extinguisher because it's right in harm's way. Usually fire extinguishers are right at doorways. So if there's a fire in that room, boom, there's a fire extinguisher right there, rather than saying, oh, we have to hide behind a plant because of the ambiance in the room here. It just has to look nice when we have guests and visitors and teleconferences, if you will. So that's one thing you take a look at and you try to pick out, is this the correct design? Is this the correct placement of things? How can somebody get hurt? In this instance here, we use what we call the she concept, or the she review of things. It has nothing to do with construction guys looking at ladies walking along sidewalks and stuff like that. No offense to the ladies in the room. But basically it says you look at something from a safety perspective. How can somebody get hurt on this thing? You look at something from a health, which is the H, the health perspective, which says, is this stuff, are these fumes harmful to people? Okay, is the battery acid from a health perspective going to be harmful to people? You look at it from an E, which is an ergonomic, and one of the things you guys are very concerned with is the last E, or environment. How is this going to impact the environment? In the old days, it was pretty easy because you just dumped it in a sewer. Okay, that's what you did. I mean, I grew up in Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh Natural Gas Company, used to wait at their stations for their streams to rise so they could dump all the excess chemicals in the streams, go down to the Allegheny because it was dead anyhow, and if it got to Monongahela, Ohio, we didn't care because it was going across the border. But the good news is, the EPA came in and said, you can't do that anymore. You can't do that anymore. You're concerned, we had an EPA discussion once with one of the EPA guys because we were getting a parking lot resurfaced. And they were putting a coat on the parking lot. We looked ahead, no rain for 3 days. The guy said 24 hours, it's dry, you can do anything you want to on it. Doing a section at a time, and blah, 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 blah. He did the upper section, which was nobody used it. And didn't you know, a shower came by. And the EPA was right there because somebody reported us for polluting the storm drains with asphalt. And this guy walked 5 miles down the stream before he found a little minnow that was dead. And he came up, you would have thought he caught a muskie or something like that. He was holding this little minnow and said, you guys are killing fish. It was like, now it's up to us to prove that we weren't killing fish, which is tough to do, which is really tough to do. All right, electrical. On construction sites, what do? We build and fix. So people think that they can build and fix extension cords. Put some tape around it. Now why, what's the rationale? A lot of times if you talk to your employees but you can't do that, they'll still do it. But the rationale is that you can't guarantee that this fixed job here with duct tape or electrical tape provides the same insulation quality that the manufacturer provides by the original insulation. That's it. Now, try to talk to my 86-year-old father-in-law who decorates his house like for Christmas, has no concept of electricity, ground fault circuit interrupters. He has no snow in his front yard where the extension cords are. That's how warm the electricity is going through everything. And it's either duct tape, plastic bagged, or something like that. So I see you guys starting to think, oh gosh, that's what I do. But that doesn't fly. Now this is actually, remember the Penn State picture? Penn State now comes under OSHA. Penn State has all the King's horses and all the King's men, and they were putting a wall together. They needed electricity, and this is what we took behind the scenes of that wall collapse thing. So everybody does it, but that doesn't make it right. Okay? So you have here a ground fault circuit interrupter protector right here, which is plugged into this thing, which goes up into this thing, which is another gang box with some more stuff in it. So God only knows how much stuff they're powering off this unit. Okay, I don't know how they were doing that. I think it was the guy from the FBI said this is okay to do because he was going to burn the stadium down or something after his report. But don't think that because some people are very, very good companies that nothing happens like this. This is why you have to be vigilant. This is why, again, I wish the gentleman was here because he had a very, very nice way of talking to his people. Nice way of correcting his people, nice way of telling people how this is how you do it, and things like this. And it's no reflection on supervision because everybody just takes a chance. Everybody just takes a chance when they do things like this. All right, standard operating procedure on constructions is somebody cuts the third prong off. Or somebody takes the two-prong thing and puts it in there. It's only about a $700 to $1,000 fine anymore. That's how blatant it is. That's why a lot of construction companies use ground fault circuit interrupters, because if you do that, it becomes a de minimis citation in most cases. Because the guy can't get killed. That'll kick in when this happens. But still, it's a big citation. It's something that shouldn't be allowed, because if you allow this, then you allow that, and then you allow this, and you allow that. Okay? Construction sites are notorious for temporary wiring. Now somebody said, I know you can't put wiring through doorways. I know that. But I'll get some pipe insulation and protect the wiring. So it's like somebody's thinking, now this guy should be figuring other things out, because that's a pretty good system here to go into the temporary wiring, if you will. It's an actual construction site, not yours, not yours. You guys don't do stuff like that. But this is what you do, okay? Not really, but you have electricians that do a great job on things, okay? Great job on things. But then you have somebody that needs temporary power. Somebody needs temporary power. You know what? I need it right now. Can you just hook something up for me? Can you just rig it up? You know. So this is some of the things that occur. And when you're on a construction site, when you take a look at what people do, you have to understand that you're here, right now, you take a snapshot of what you see. This may not have occurred yesterday. Somebody needs something here, right now, and so it's not like it's constant. Now if you come back in 2 weeks and it's still there, then you get another problem. But understand that things change so much on every job site, especially the ones that you are involved with, that this is almost standard operating procedures if you do these things. Recognize this job site? Yeah, it's one of yours. We were there doing a safety inspection, and so this guy decided to put a show on for us. And what do you think's wrong with this picture? First name?
David.
David. You hesitated there, David. Huh?
Well, I don't know what you're going to ask me.
Oh, okay. Republican or Democrat? All right. What do you think this guy could do better? Let's put it this way. I hate to say what he's doing wrong, but what could he do better?
Well, it's on wheels for one thing.
Okay, he actually has a step ladder over here, right here. But yes, this is on wheels, and he has all his fluorescent tubes here that he's changing them out. Okay, they're going to save money in the long run by changing out all these light bulbs and stuff like that. Okay, the step ladder is too short. First of all, he has no balance going up in the thing. The second thing is this the only light that's out, or is everything electrically charged? Everything's electrically charged, okay? So the guy says, oh, what's going to happen to me up here? You know, I mean, he was a nice guy and everything like that, but he says, all I'm doing is changing light bulbs out. That's true. Now, all the energy savings, if you fall off of here and hit your head on the ground, and the worst case scenario, become paralyzed or diminished capacity for the rest of your life, the savings for the light bulbs are going to be negated. Trust me, they are. So the cool thing was, we were in the office right here meeting, talking about what we're going to do from a safety standpoint, and this guy's out here putting a show on for us on what he's going to do incorrectly. Now, the other thing is he doesn't have safety glasses on. What happens to fluorescent tubes every once in a while if you just hit them wrong? They explode. They explode. There's a lot of nasty stuff in those tubes, plus the glass goes everywhere. So, now, this guy's going to say, well, you know what, leave me alone because I did all these lights and nothing happened. Is that a good argument? Is it? You drive drunk all your life and nothing happens, so why should you change? I didn't point to her. But she did turn red. So she was
That's guilt.
And Loretta, are you ever going to sit there again?
Never.
Did our site representative relay to you that employee was not of our employee?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
He was employed by the owner.
Absolutely. But the thing is, and this is where I overstep my bounds a lot. I used to work at a department store, as a safety director for one of the department stores in Pittsburgh, and I'd see people having their kids sit on escalators. And I'd say, you know what? You don't understand what's going to happen to this kid. You don't understand. Shoelaces, shoes, and I would actually take that child and lift them up. I mean, you could do that before all this craziness came up. But I didn't care. I didn't care because I've seen too many things like this. Yes, he did relay that to me, and yes, he did. But you know, safety people go cross boundaries a lot, and I'd rather get chewed out by the owner for yelling at this guy, like I did with my builder, because he had a couple of subcontractors on my jobs, or cutting rebar for sidewalks and stuff like that with no safety glasses on or anything like that. So I told him to stop, or hey, I mean, I don't want anybody getting hurt. I don't care what it costs and everything like that. 100% yes. But when you go on a construction site and you look at things like this, okay, this is what we look at from a safety standpoint. Everybody looks at things differently. That's why we educated and talked a little bit about, real strongly about the safety committee and what you do. Because everybody looks at things from a different perspective. Some people want a job site and say, okay, we're supposed to be right here on our plans, on our Gantt charts. We're right there, we're okay. HR comes in to the site and says, okay, we've not had any employee turnover, no injuries. Safety people come in and look at things like this and say, something needs to be addressed. We can do this job a lot better than what we do these things. The other thing that he was doing was throwing all the stuff on the side where you could walk and trip on the doggone thing. Okay? What's in your glass?
Vodka.
All right. As we progress with the construction process, one of the things you have to be looking at is equipment interaction. There's all kind of stuff, from big earth movers. Once we get in, somebody says, well, we don't have to worry about it. But then you go into low light, you go into heavy equipment, and you go to guys that have to get a job done. Perfect example. We had people that would be in a store and ram into posts with the lift trucks. Okay, now, how do you address something like that? You fire the guy?
Yep.
It was our fault. It was our fault. We didn't design the process well enough. You take Newport concrete, which is gray, which generates concrete dust. You go into a new facility and you paint everything gray, walls, posts. So now you have a guy running around a lift truck carrying stuff all around with gray posts, gray concrete, gray walls, and dust everywhere. What do you think is going to happen? Maybe one every 10,000 times. He's going to hit a post. So our safety group said, okay, after we do all this stuff, let's wrap that fluorescent tape around the posts. That way we can see it. Okay, so yes, it was his fault for running into a post. Yes, we did. But we also said, well, how can we prevent somebody else from doing this stuff? So we come up with a solution, real quick, real easy. Wrapping posts are a little bit easier than replacing posts. Okay, we sort of figured that one out in our little offices. But when you have equipment, now understand why people argue with the equipment all the time. If this thing can lift 2 bushels, 2 tons of something, is it going to argue with you? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's not going to argue. We cannot customize equipment. We're not allowed by law to customize or adapt any type of equipment, okay? The meeting has ended. Boy, you guys are tough here. Jeez, man. No books or anything. You're done. Next. Dessert. All right. All right. You do have confined spaces on your job. Confined spaces are tough because they're usually injuries, and they're usually multiple injuries. You have to think through these things. We were on the job site with one of your facilities. Guys had harnesses on. They were getting ready to do some installation on some of the big mixer tanks and stuff like that. They had a confined space program. They were doing everything that they needed to do to minimize the risk of the guys going in there. Okay. I mean, when you look at some of the confined spaces on construction sites, there's a furnace over at the farm show that they have the old coal grates going through. They put coal on the grates and it goes through and burns it. Those guys go in there and replace fire bricks, and that's exactly how much clearance they have on fire bricks when they do these things. I still work for.
Were you in there?
I couldn't fit in there. I couldn't. That's one I put on. No, why did you ask that? Just.
I'm just curious how you got the picture.
Oh, no. Well, they pull them off the internet and things like this. People send to me. One of the nice things about our company, Cincinnati Insurance, which I just like, they're like great to work for, is we have 100 and some loss control people all over the United States. So if you have anything you need, somebody has it somewhere. And, you know, we go on the websites and post some information. It's like whatever you guys need, we certainly do that for you. Help you out a little bit. But, you know, you get into some things. I worked for a winery. Actually out in California, Fetzer Wines, you may have heard of them. And one of the things, we had confined space programs because we would go into the vats, fermentation tanks and everything. And, you know, we had to do air sampling, we had a thing. When we found out that they did have the harnesses on, but they had the belts. They didn't have the full body harnesses. So we would try to, if you had to rescue somebody, you'd double them over if they were passed out and they couldn't get their butts through the door. So we said, okay, don't look at me like that. All right? We'd say, okay, we need to put full harnesses on there. We need to put full harnesses on these people. Okay? And then one guy said, I don't want to come out yet. There's some more wine in here. Don't let me come out. All right. Let's take a look and have some fun. Take a look at the situation. See if you can spot what's wrong or what you would improve on. And take the actual pictures and try to figure out why it occurred that way, if you will. Okay? What do you think of that? Not staged, by the way. Not staged.
Tanks.
Tanks, right. Compressed gas cylinders, tanks if you call them, standing on a construction site with heavy equipment vibrating all over the place. Wind vibrating all over the place. Kind of tough. What would you do?
Bottle rag need to be anchored.
They need to be anchored, they need to be secure so they don't top over. It's a myth that these things, if they top over, these caps protect them. It's a myth. I mean, if you've ever seen like Mythbusters and things like this, when they knock the tops of one of those tanks off, they're like a missile. They just don't argue with anything or anybody. They'll do major damage. But again, this might have just been moved. This might just be here, but unfortunately, they're left unattended in the middle of a parking lot. Okay, so it's kind of a what are you going to do about this thing type deal here. Okay, what about this guy? What do you say about
Wrong shade of paint.
no ear protection, no hard hat. But actually, I guess he sort of thinks this is the way to go. Hopefully he has the other ladder anchored, but again, we talked about behaviors. We talked about people making the wrong choices. How much time did he spend trying to figure this thing out? And apparently, these look like they're pretty well custom-made braces. Okay? All right, I need some help here. Loretta, we're going to pick on you. Just read the good news.
Got rope burns on both of my hands.
What's the bad news?
I don't know where Freddie went.
That's good. Okay. Now, all the king's horses and all the king's men, two guys figured this system out. Two guys figured this system out. Okay? So, you think this is fun? The guy done it. Yeah.
Just so you know, Coca Services only has one floor.
Okay. But when you think, do you think these people were trained? Do you think they had supervision? Do you think that they actually had a knowledge of what could happen? You know, I'm the worst dad in the world because I can tell you what's going to happen as soon as we get on the highway. I can give you statistics on who's going to get hurt, who's going to get killed, how people are going to get hurt. My daughter, I mean, you know, I make her wear a helmet, elbow pads, knee pads, wrist pads, just to go get the mail. You know, and she says, "Come on, Dad, you're embarrassing me." All right, that's Freddie. Okay, here's an innovative tool that I'm sure you're going to be purchasing.
Welcome back, screwdriver.
What do you think could be wrong with this? Not enough duct tape. They should use fluorescent orange duct tape. Okay, but somebody invented this thing. Okay, not really funny. But somebody thought
someone
this.
in Pittsburgh invented it?
Yes, they did, and we'll probably make $1 million selling it to Philadelphia. Again, whether this guy's a major commercial contractor, a small contractor, mom and pop operation, he figured out that this is the best way to do this stuff. Now, probably doesn't have a concept of what loading is on scaffolding. Okay? I mean, you know, wood scaffold is bad in itself because it's a natural substance. So you think you know what it'll hold, but then you add some knots and you add some cuts and you add some scrapes. All of a sudden that load capacity goes way down. Okay? How about use for ladders? Let's take this one. Do you think this one's okay? What's your first name?
Julie.
Julie, do you think this one's okay?
No.
Just touching up the jobs. That's all we're doing. Just doing some little work. What's wrong with it?
It's not resting on the floor.
Okay, it's not resting on the floor. It's actually not a good thing. Now, sometimes painters will actually get like ladders that have movable legs on them, step ladders or things, and you can adjust the leg. That's perfectly fine. But innovation shouldn't be here. What about this? You bought a genie ladder. Okay, it can be used in 24. This is the 25th way it can be used. Now, this is not designed to be a step ladder, a ladder like this. It's supposed to be spread apart, A-frame ladder, locked in there to make it solid. You know, one of the things that you always preach is use the right tool for the job. That extends into your equipment, your materials, and everything like that when you're doing these things. How about this? This guy rested the ladder. Now, when you look at it, you say, well, these are designed to support. The foot pedal aren't designed to support anything. And he's actually going in the opposite direction.
But he does have his knee pads.
He does. He does. I mean, I've been with so many crazy construction people, and one guy said, "You wear your hard hat." And the guy says, "Why?" He says, "So I can put you in it when you fall off the dang ladder." Okay? But yeah, and I guess all these things are, this is actually one of the safest places, and the guy was sort of embarrassed when he saw this thing. All right, what would this tell you? What would this tell you?
That's Leon's chair.
That's Leon.
I'm just presenting it. I don't have a clue. you tell people, do you think you need a ladder in your office? Okay? What do you need this for? But the evidence doesn't support the fact that this person denies using this as a ladder. Okay? And sometimes you actually do need to use ladders and different equipment. All right, here's scaffolding. How many of you ever put scaffolding in between step ladders? I mean, we grew up in Pittsburgh, and Alcoa had extrusion mills and everything. Everybody made their own ladders, and we used them for everything. And it's a wonder we all haven't been killed. All right, construction sites. These are actual construction sites, Pittsburgh. Here's pictures. Okay, guy standing on top of a step ladder. Okay, simple rule is belt buckle. Your belt buckle should never be higher than the top area. It should never extend to the side outside of the legs, because that shifts your center of gravity, and that makes the ladder very, very unstable. Now this guy here, and actually is very, very unstable, but when you look at it, if he falls in a construction site, I mean, you guys kid each other by putting these little plastic caps on the rebar. If you fall on rebar with a little plastic cap, I mean, it's going to tell you I'm going to hit rebar because you can see it. Okay? Can't do a whole lot about it if you're on the way down. You're still going to get stuck. I mean, that's the sad thing about construction site, because you can exasperate a fall off of a ladder into a fatality real easy on a construction site. All kidding aside, you're in a tough business. How about this one, scaffolding? Scaffolding says they have to be stable on stable ground. If you know anything about block, which I'm sure you do, you know that this is not the way the block is designed to take force. It's completely opposite. Completely opposite. All right, here's an innovative way to use scissor lifts, ladders, and ladder jacks. Now, there is absolutely nothing that these guys... Now, what about a wind factor when you work up that high? When you're working up that high with a wind factor and you're trying to use big pieces of wood or siding or something like that. All right? What about playing around in buckets? Just take me up there. Let me see what it looks like. I just need to go over these plans just one time. All right? That just about summarizes what we wanted to show you. We wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of the hazards on a construction site. We wanted to have some fun. We want to talk a little bit about OSHA. We wanted to talk a little bit about your safety committee. But although we had some fun here, I hope, and I know you guys do, take safety very, very seriously. Your safety records prove it. The way when we went on the job site, some of the stuff they were doing was pretty tough, but it was all done according to what they should have been doing. So I commend you for that. But I appreciate you having me come in and talking a little bit about the safety aspect of the business, and hopefully y'all will thanks Sarah for the subways, which was kind of nice. So that's it. I'm going to turn it back over to Brian, and if anybody has any questions. Julie?
So you support our NFC in ensuring NFC jobs?
Yeah, we're your workers' comp insurance company.
Okay.
From a corporation perspective.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Even in our professional business?
That I don't know what coverages you have through us, honestly.
Okay.
But I do know we have the comp. That's how I got involved with the safety committee and the job site visits and things like this. One of the things nice, and I'm going to take 2 seconds to sell you Cincinnati. One of the things nice about Cincinnati is we're all local. So it takes me about an hour to get here in case you need anything on a moment's notice. This was very well organized. I mean, you were 3 months out and scheduling this thing. But that's good. But if you need anything on a real quick basis, we'll shoot right down here in service. You're a great account for ours, and we really like working with you. Plus, every time I go into this building, I think, wow, I'd just like to be able to design something like this around what you designed. It's just a beautiful building. But yeah, we carry your comp. And my philosophy is on insurance. We want you to buy our insurance, but we don't want you to use it. It's pretty simple concept. It's like your auto insurance and everything like that. Yes, sir.
We also buy risk insurance and have through you on various jobs.
Good. So that's it. Go ahead.
Which ones of our job sites did you visit?
I know you've been to New Jersey.
New Jersey, that's right. Yeah, in Jersey. We went out to that.
Every design build job, we have Cincinnati come out at least one time during the job and do a review.
Yeah, they've been to Snyder's, they've been to
every job, every design build job that I've been on, Cincinnati has been out.
So they wouldn't cover our subs though, just us as employees or as a...
If we have builder's risk through them, builder's risk handles the total job for anything that happens.
Yeah, I should mention, Chuck is new with us this year. Prior to this year, it was Jeff Spangler, so that's why we've only got he's only got one site visit so far, just because he's new with us this year.
So I want to thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Brian, and go ahead.
You talked about bending knees.
Mhm.
Or, one good tidbit is if you sneeze or cough, bend your knees. Don't when you're standing.
Perfect.
It takes the pressure off your back.
Absolutely. Yes, you're 100% right.
Because I had it happen. So.
100% right. But I have a trick back, and it's like no matter what how people tell me they hurt their back, I believe them.
Yep.
You sneeze, I believe you.
I'll give another tidbit. Bend over like a golfer. That's what I learned in my physical therapy. For anybody, instead of just bending your knees.
Oh, like to do the golfer.
Yeah, the golfer.
So don't wear that skirt anymore.
This one is a short one.
Does your back hurt after you wear that dress? Okay, good tip. Good tip. Actually, you're right with that. We actually did an ergonomic evaluation of one of the jobs, and the lady was really, really nice, and we kept telling you to bend your knees, get your tush down on the ground, get that good grip. And she couldn't do it. And then you have to watch because of HIPAA, you can't ask if she had knee surgery or anything like that. She said, well, I can't do it. And I said, well, if you're going to open up that door, why can't you do it? She said, my jeans are too tight. And she said, but wait, it gets better. She said, but by Wednesday they'll loosen up a little bit and then I can do my job. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else? Okay, thanks a million, Brian.
Well, if that's it, thanks for coming.
Is there a sign-in sheet, Brian?
Yes, up front here, please sign in if you have it.
And if anyone's interested in joining the safety committee, we can always do that as people.